Welcome back to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Juri Love. I'm your host. Today we're recording episode 104. Before I introduce my guest, I want to introduce my book, which is the same title as this podcast, A Gift from Adversity. The subtitle of this book is called Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness. After I experienced all of this growing up in Japan, I came to America and I felt compelled to publish a book, but not only that, I felt really compelled to start a podcast, the same title as my book last year. And I am so humbled and grateful that many of the guests came from all over the world. And we had discussed about the adversities, but not only the hardship, but also the tools that people use to overcome and the gift that came from it. So I'm very grateful to introduce tonight's guest, Sujata. Hi, Sujata. Thank you so much for coming into A Gift from Adversity tonight.
The pleasure is mine.
So, can you introduce yourself to our guest? What's your name and where you coming in from and what do you do?
So, my name is Sujata Ramteke. I come from India, Maharashtra. I come from a small, very small town near to a place called Nagpur. It's almost, yeah, I would be overrating if I call it a small town. It's more like a small village. Um, and currently, I work in corporate. I am into predictive analytics and business forecasting.
Do you have any Instagram or website that people can follow?
Well, I'm not that active, but I have my footprints on Instagram. I'm active on LinkedIn for my corporate office professional reason, and then I'm also on Facebook.
What is your IG handle?
It's SR_SUZZY.
Well, thank you so much again for coming in. So let's dive into the first question, which is the adversity. So, what was your adversity?
So I would like to start with domestic violence. So while growing up, I have experienced that a lot in the family from my father. We have like grown up in a very violent, very harsh. Me and my siblings, very harsh environment where we, constantly had had to protect ourselves from not from outside but from inside within the house. So my father is a very violent and very angry man. Till today, I think it has come down, but still there is. But um, it was for like the smallest of the mistakes, like not enough salt in the food to my mom. Um, so we used to get beat up um, every other day, you can say. um, and it's if it starts with one member of the family for doing like something wrong, it would then go to all of the family. Like if my mom is getting beaten up for something as trivial as not enough salt in the food, and then it would transpire to my sister, me, my uncles. So everybody, and then there is like a this hierarchy. Like my father would show his violent behavior towards my uncles, and then my uncles had that anger in them, and hurt they wanted to pass on to somebody else. So they would come on to us, and then we would get from both sides, like from uncles and from my father. So It was quite a challenging atmosphere to grow up with, constantly like looking out for one another, and it was so intense that it was just not like my father like used to beat up with whatever he gets in hand, like a rod or a pipe or anything that he can put his hand on. So it was like constant, the feeling of like protection, like protecting ourselves. So as soon as we used to like hear my father coming, because he had that bike and it would make a sound, so we kind of got used to like a particular sound of my father like coming home. We would, wherever we are, we would just rush home, like no matter where we are, we would just like run to our house, because if we do not go and our dad finds out that we are not there, then we are definitely like getting beaten up. So, and it was like for very, and the problem was for no reason, like there has there you d- he did it didn't need any reason to kind of show that behavior. He would just pick little things and just um, get on with his beating. And the problem was, so if one person is getting beaten up, the other people in the family would not save anybody, because everybody wanted to save their own life. um, so and then if and the worst part was, you were not allowed to cry. You cannot cry while getting beaten up. You have to stay silent, because if you cry, you're going to get beaten up more. So it was like suffer in a silence, sort of thing. And then once, like, one incident was very peculiar. So my younger uncle, he got beaten up to the point where he had to like hospitalized right away. So it was very very harsh. And because of this all harshness and this anxiety between everybody, no one spoke to one another with kindness, like, because everybody was hurt inside in one way or the other. So everybody just was wallowing in their own hurt, and trying to as much hurt verbally other person who's coming, who's in the house. So somehow everybody tried to pass on that hurt. Somehow they wanted to feel less hurt than what than the other person. So this kept going on for a very long time, actually. So um, even like when I remember when I was it was my 24th birthday. And so at my home, we were like, we never celebrated anybody's birthday. um, my parents never celebrated anybody's like their anniversaries, or we never went out on vacation. It's not that we didn't have money. It's my dad was very single minded, like he wanted things this way, so it has to be that way. There is no other way. He didn't like to go on vacation, so nobody can go because he doesn't like it. And so when I was on my 24th birthday, after my engineering, I was at with my family, and it was my birthday. So I knew that my friends, like, nobody's gonna celebrate at home, so I might as well go out with my friends, because they called me to kind of celebrate. I remember I came home little late, like at around 9 p.m., which is not really that late. But when I got home, because I was late and I did not come back on the time he told me, at around like 6 o'clock, I have to be home. So because I was late, he ran onto me to hit me. I was 24 at the time. So, and then because of fear, I ran out of the house. So he ran after me, he caught me, and all my neighbors came out because of all the yelling and, all the drama that was going on. And he beat me in front of all my neighbors. And I was 24. I was so embarrassed, so ashamed. um and when I was like younger, younger than like 24, when I was still at my parents' house, um before my college, I remember I used to tell my grandmother always that I want to get out of this hell, and when I go, I would never come back here. But I do go to them. Like, I have my mom and my sister who I want to meet. So, but yeah, it was very intense. And because of all that, I grew up as a very angry child, because I had so much anger, that inside I knew that I was kind, but outer, I was so angry outside, and I wanted to keep that shield on me, so that, I believed that if I had that anger, because my father had anger, no one could touch him, right? So I said, if I have anger, no one will be able to touch me ever. So, that's that in a weird way, I looked up to him, that he has anger, so he has power, right? So if I have anger, I'm going to have power. So no one is going to, treat me bad if I show my anger. So that actually affected my relationship with my friends. So growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends, because I never used to like get along with people or my friends. Um, I, I i used to talk to people, but I never let anybody like get very close to me. So growing up, everybody has, their best friends, right? I don't. I don't have a best friend growing up, because I never let anybody get that close to me. I used to play with them, but I always had this wall that I would not let anybody cross. And if anybody comes that close, I would show my anger. I would lash out, because that's what I have been like seeing in the family, that you lash out. And that was that I carried that anger for a very long time. And then when I started realizing that that's not really the way, to go, and if I do this, I'm just going to destroy myself. So until that wisdom came to me, and until that point, I had that in me, and it has affected a lot of things in my life, right from, relationships to an extent, right from like how I perceive the world. So that has been a very, very unpleasant experience of my childhood, which, um, I wouldn't say I want to forget, but because there is no way, because it's very difficult to explain it to somebody what you feel when you get beaten up. I mean, people who get beaten up, they know how it feels to get beaten up. And the worst part of it is my father made it look okay. We were taught that it is okay to get beaten up, and that had a severe effect on my siblings life, because we were told that it's okay. And at a certain point, we did believe that it was okay to get beaten up. And it was showed to us that it is their right to beat us. And and when my dad used to be in good mood, he used to kind of proudly tell stories of how he almost beat his own mother for not giving food to him. And he said it very proudly. And uh, and we had to laugh, right? Because we wouldn't dare not to laugh. So yeah, it was difficult time. But somehow it transpired in the worst way to my sister's life, because she got married, right? She got married at the very early age of 21, and she has seen all this. And of course, arranged marriage, because we wouldn't dare to fall in love at that time. Like, it was not a possibility, because my father would kill me or my sister if he knows that we are, in relationship with anybody. So we kind of kept to ourselves. Um, so she got arranged marriage, and um, unfortunately, she got married to the same kind of person as my father was, even worse. So, and on the eighth day of her marriage, her wedding, eighth day, she got beaten up with the belt because she asked him why he came late from work, just for that one question. And my sister, she's at the time she was very like a very lean, very delicate kind of person, and she got beaten up so bad, and she felt sick after that. And that poor girl, she thought it's okay, because it was made us to believe it's okay to get beaten up by your husband, because my mom got beaten up by her husband. So she thought it's okay. It's part of the deal. It's it's part of the marriage deal whole to get beaten up with your by your husband, your better half. She never told anybody. She kind of suffered in silence for almost 8 months. And when she came back to see us on one of the festivals, she told my mom that he beat her. And my mom didn't tell my father. She kind of kept from him and told, directly confronted my brother-in-law, saying, "That's not right. She can't take it." And my mom said, "She's not strong enough to take it." So, and then these events happened throughout. And after 2 years, when my sister couldn't take it, um, and in one of my like family wedding, so my sister was having food, and it was like hot plate, and my brother-in-law came out of nowhere, and he took that plate and threw that plate on her face, that hot food on her face. And after all that drama, like, my sister told my father that I don't want to go to his house. Like, I don't want it. She was she was slapped and sent back, that saying that this is, if it is not happening every day, then it's not really that bad. So in order for it to be really bad, it has to happen every day. That's the criteria that my father had. So, and my sister then struggled with her life for 12 years in her marriage. And in 2015, when it was she was beaten up to a point where her face like swole, and she couldn't live in that house, in the same house. That she It happened at night, and she slept through it at night, like a whole night, to somebody, a neighbor's place, like somebody else's place. And then she called in the morning that this has happened to my mom, and then my mom got there and took her home. And since then, like, she's at home, still in the process. But it's like, because she believed that it's okay, she suffered. And when she was not even given chance to say that she can leave, because she's going through so much. And this is not just my story. This happens in India so often, especially in the less, uh, I would not say like less metropolitan cities, but this is a story you would hear very often. This is a problem. And the thing is, people say that, some people would argue that addiction is one of the cause, like alcohol addiction. My father doesn't even drink alcohol, so he's not under influence to like say that he's not, like, in his sane state of mind. He is in sane state of mind, and he's doing with all the mind in place. Everything is in place and still doing it. That means it's on purpose. It is on purpose. It's not just under the influence, it's on purpose. And you are made to believe that this is all fine, this is all okay, which is definitely not. That's one thing, the violence. The other thing that I really want to point out is the harassment in the neighborhoods. So when I was growing up, I kind of like had a tomboyish personality, and very outgoing. So I would get harassed a lot with the boys in the neighborhood, and no one would do anything about it. And you see that the older people in the neighborhood are standing there, but they would not say anything to those guys. And if you complain, it's like you must have done something. It's not their fault. You must have done something. And it's not until only like in my childhood, even when I was in New Jersey, this this harassment, and this guys, they don't harm you physically, but they look at you from top to bottom like as if you're not wearing anything, and they would comment on every part of your body, and they would make it in a way that you can hear it, and they would you feel embarrassed, not them. Somehow it should be the other way around, but they make you feel embarrassed, but not them who's saying it. And the other incident was when I was in New Jersey. So I was going through a lot, which I will talk about. I went to this temple, and you won't believe, the priest, he harassed me, the chief priest in that temple. And the temples, they have the policy that they don't even um, touch the shadow of a woman. They don't even touch the shadow of a woman, but in the background they can go ahead and harass people who come for prayers. So I have experienced that both during my childhood and even like and that happened in 2018 in New Jersey. So yeah, harassment is something that was really, really bad. The other thing I want to talk about is the discrimination. So I come from a minority, underprivileged community, and I have faced discrimination at various levels. Um, when I went to college for my MBA, first I was discriminated because I was from a small town. Um, I did not dress as the city people. Um, and the other thing was, so I was even called untouchable by one person in front of all the people, all of my friends who I just met like a month back, and I was called untouchable. And that really made me wonder, like, I'm in the same college as you are. I can tell I'm much smarter than you, uh, and still I have that tag. You call me that as a human being. You should not. But that was a very devastating experience. It took me a long time actually to get out and actually face that person who said that, and that person said that in front of so many people, and it was just not I mean, I felt like I was frozen when I heard that. I just froze at the position like I was in. I couldn't move because it was such a harsh thing to hear, that someone is calling you untouchable. This is like not what, like 1800. What are you, what are you saying? It was so difficult for me to process that somebody has said that thing. It took me like almost like months and months to get out of it and kind of concentrate on my studies. During and in that time, like during that frame, I fell in love with a guy in my university. So we had a relationship. It was going well, And in India, I don't know if you're aware, but from last name you can tell the community they belong to, so or the caste they belong to. So even if you don't say it by you know on the face, just by the last name, people can actually make it that what community you belong to. So this guy, he was supposedly, from a better community, privileged community. So um, as long as it was fun, it wasn't serious, it was okay to have relationship with the woman from an underprivileged background. But as soon as things start to get serious, then it was a pushback, like, oh, because you are from this community, I cannot do it. My parents wouldn't allow it because you're from a particular caste. And despite that, I kept that relationship going on for like 5 years. Every year it was, I'll talk to my parents about next year, I'll talk next year. And then at one point when I confronted his parents, like family, they said mean things right in front of my face about my upbringing because I'm from a particular caste. And that took such a toll on my life. The 5 years relationship that I had, it was so much exhausting. And when I understood that, this is not going anywhere, because no matter how much educated I am, no matter how much professionally successful I am going to carry this tag always, and there is no way out of it. So, and I'm going to suffer. I'm going to suffer. And at one point, I started hating myself. That's the worst part, that I started hating myself. That why I have to be from this community. Why this has to happen to me. If I wouldn't have, I would have been at such a better position, or I would have had a life that I want, like having a family or getting married to the guy I want. Um, but it was a wrong thinking. Person should accept you the way you are, not based on the other, and these criterias doesn't even matter. you know the castes should not even matter. First you have to see it as you are a human, that person is a human, nothing else should matter. But what that did was I started hating myself. It created, and because of this constant badgering of you're not from this caste, you're not from a privileged caste, you this cannot work, I started having issues on my self-esteem. I started considering myself like very low at one point. That, okay, if bad things are happening to me, oh, okay, maybe I deserve it. Maybe um, I was even told once that I was born in this community because of my past life karmas, because I have done something really bad in my past life. That is why I'm born in this life, in this caste, to suffer, basically. So, yeah, it took toll. So my depression journey actually started from there. That those Now that I look at that time, like I was not so matured enough to kind of understand that it's a depression. But now when I look back, it started from there. But I had this strong will to success and do something with my life. And I was growing up, I was very ambitious. I always had longer vision. Like I was a visionary. I used to vision myself like doing something great, and I still do. So that ambition actually kind of build that wall against that depression. It was there, but it didn't let that touch it. So my ambition kind of kept me going. So um, then I came to US, for my education. um, and then the same thing happened. Like I had a relationship, the same cycle. When it was fun. But as soon as you start getting serious, the first question came was the cast, that my parents don't approve and of this cast, and I can't do it. So it was difficult. It was very difficult for me because I was thinking, okay, first thing that happened. So I educated myself, I empowered myself. I came all the way to America thinking that it won't happen here, right? I would not be judged on my background. Um, but sadly it did. So I thought, like, now where should I go? Like, where is the path? So whatever I could do, I did, right? Getting out from India. So I told you, right? I'm from a very small town. Statistically, it's not possible to come out of that town in America. I am the first girl who came for education from that town. It is such a small, remote place. You won't believe I'm not in touch with my mom from last 2 weeks because there is no internet connection, proper connection in 2023. So you can imagine how backward or how small that village or that place is, right? So it is. So now I have done, like, I did where what I am supposed to do, or what I thought is right. I came to America, I did my studies. I And by the time I had a, quite a good professional thing going on. I was getting successful, and so I have education, I'm professionally successful, I'm in America. And why this happening? It is still happening. Like, what is the way out? Now what do I do to remove this badge? What am I supposed to do? So those questions haunted me for so long. They haunted me so long. They put me in depression. Like, that is where I actually experienced what depression is. So I carried that from my first relationship back from India, from that 5 years. And then, because I had that, again, that kind of trauma of that 5 years, because I was emotionally abused a lot in that relationship, because I was said really mean things. And when I carried it here in this relationship, it broke. And for 9 months almost, I went through depression, anxiety. I started having suicidal thoughts. Um, but still, I had my strength. I had a strength in me. Somehow I was able to cope with it, because I never took a day off from work, because you have to go to work. um, I started with my, the other things where I can wrap my mind, like meditation practices. I got involved into a lot of things, but I still had my strength to carry on at that point. it, I gathered myself together, put myself together, and I went into third relationship, considering third time will be a charm. But you won't believe, the same thing happened. It again came to the same thing. And after that, like, and all of these super charming thing, stratospheric promises that were made, suddenly it just left a void in my heart. And that is when I actually fell into depression, like a full blown depression, what you call. I fell into that. And when this happened, actually, for almost a month, my mind kind of, it wiped out all the memory that things have gone bad. And I kept doing things without shedding a tear. No tears. I was going to office, even, like, I was more active. I used to get up at 4, go for a run, as if nothing happened. I used to run like 6 miles every day, and come back home exhausted. And then slowly, you go through all that stages, right, where you go denial, or things didn't happen at all. Your memory just, like, mind just blocks it off. And then start slowly, it started sipping in. And then, actually, for almost like 2 weeks, I couldn't eat. So nothing would go down my throat, like, not even a slice of bread. It was so difficult for me to eat something. And then I kind of consulted my friend who's a doctor, and then he connected me to a psychologist. And when I talked to a psychologist, I was in such a bad condition at the time, that he said that if you don't start taking pills, you're losing your motor skills. You won't even be able to brush your teeth. Like, as simple task as brushing your teeth would be difficult for you. um, and i I went to therapy. Since then, I like almost for like 2 years, 2.5 years, I did a lot of therapy, like different kinds. Actually, I started a lot of work on my emotions. So a lot of that happened, but these were like the main events of my life that like defined uh, my journey, or you would say defined me in a lot of ways. And if this wouldn't have happened, I think my life would have been totally different.
Well, there's a comment, live comment, Polvish. It is very brave of you to share your family's story.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, it took me some time, and yeah, it does. Like, I was skeptical initially of whether I should say it or not, but I thought it's just gonna, my friend, one of my friends said that it's going to, it's going to heal you.
First of all, thank you very, very much for sharing your story. Just like you had a doubt in your mind that when I published my book, A Gift from Adversity, the section that I wrote about my father's sexual abuse, I
Yeah.
was doubtful how much I should type. And I was shaking and I was crying. And of course, I relived everything. And a lot of domestic violence survivors, we would never forget the feeling. And I'm so heartbroken for you, and I feel the pain. And I still remember the time that my dad grabbed my head just when I complained about lunch or whatever, just the smallest thing, and pounded on the desk. He kicked me to the wall, and I thought I was gonna die. When he took a break, I ran to my friend's house, and he caught me, and tried to punch me, and then my friend's family tried to um, prevent that from him. But it gets worse and worse and worse, and there's no way out. And I've seen not just towards me, but then my grandpa beating up my uncle. And
Hmm.
I remember begging him to stop kicking him. And I remember losing my voice the next day. And I was a child, probably like third grade. And I remember I went to school. Why can I not talk? Oh, I screamed and cried and begged to stop the domestic violence. And obviously, when you're a kid, you have no idea. And then
Hmm.
when you are in a small village, like um, you told, I was raised in people of 4,000 in a town, in a village. Everybody knew everybody. Um, my heart shudders every time I hear domestic violence, sexual violence stories, and I cannot stand it. And I'm so grateful that you decided to come on my podcast and then speak out about it, because wrong is wrong. And I
Yeah.
want you and the audience to know, even one hit or punch to your face or stomach, any part of your body, it's an assault.
Yep.
It's not okay to violate that. And as you said that your father made it sound like it's okay, my dad did the same thing. And he even manipulated the teachers and then said that I am ungrateful daughter, not following the order, when he was sexually abusing me and then physically abusing me. So I am so sorry that happened. So I just want to really not only sympathize with you, but really proud of you of how you came out from it and then be able to talk about this. It is such a courageous thing to talk about it. I remember 20 years ago when people say, even the word father, I start to break down to tears. I would have never imagined that I would publish my book. I would never imagine that I'd be talking to you on podcast. I would have never figured out what was going on in my head because I had zero education about this.
Yeah.
And as far as the cast and Untouchable, I don't know if you know the Japan had a cast and it was in Edo era and it's Shino Kosho, which is the samurai is on top. Samurai
Mm.
is the top tier and then the farmer is the second and then Ko is like business and then sorry, engineer and then business. So then there are four cast in Edo era in Japan, but then they made this buraku, which is the untouchable. Now
Mhm.
that exists in Japan. And then one of my sister's friend, when I was probably 19, 20, she had kind of like a gathering. And then she came up to my face and then told me, "You are so lucky that you can marry anybody. I can't." And I didn't really understand. Um, but there is like a secret meeting of these untouchable people. And then somehow my father's village had a area where it was the people who were pushed to, like near the mountain where the untouchable lived. Somehow my mom was telling me that my grandpa, who died before I was born, researched before she went to marry my father, found out there was an area there was untouchable in the history, not right now. So he was against for my mom to marry my dad.
Mm.
And then, like you said about
It's
the last
that.
name, my mother's side has this samurai last name in the Chinese character.
Mhm.
My father's side has this farmer side of the last name character. So that can tell like what you say. And it's less of the stigma in Japan for sure, but then I did meet somebody in my age group that they're still suffering, and I have no idea how to combat this. I have no idea how to get rid of this history and stigma at all. And also, I just want to share with you about discrimination and prejudice against you as a human being, not as um, somebody who has accomplished a lot in education and the career. Same for me. I'm Asian female. I I have probably published over 500 articles and checked maybe over 6.2 million words. Still, like recently, like even this week, somebody say, "Do you speak English?" Can No, can you speak English? Not even do you. Can you speak English? Do you work at the nail salon? And I'm like, no, I don't even know how to do my nails. It's ridiculous. But even like 9 years old, when I was at the cafeteria serving lunch, came to me and started to tell me like ding dong ding, and I don't
Mm.
know what that means. So it's massive amount of prejudice, no matter how you're educated, how you look. So I can totally understand, and I'm very, very sorry.
Yeah, and the thing is, people who have never been discriminated, for them discrimination doesn't exist, and they will tell you. And most of the people you meet here will tell you that the caste discrimination doesn't exist in India. It does. It does. In villages, in small places, it is evident. You can point it out. But in metro cities, when people say, oh, it exists in the small towns but not in the metros, they're wrong. It exists in metros, but it is so subtle, it is so under the table that you cannot even point it out. If you cannot point it out, how are you going to say that you were discriminated? Because there is no way to say discriminate. Only the person who was discriminated knows he or she was discriminated, but you cannot say it out loud because they do not keep any proof of it. And this is a very pressing issue in India. And lot of people, you will hear, you if you go and search, there are so many articles. There are so many articles on this. Um, if like a marginal background person goes to a temple, they get beaten up. They get beaten up to the death. Lot of so I as I said about harassment, right? So you will hear a lot of this brutal rapes, lot of it in India, a lot. But the rapes that happen to the underprivileged women, they are not even reported. Rapes happen rarely for the privileged women, but if it does, it's bad. It's bad if it happens to anyone. But if it does, it gets reported, it gets taken action on. But when it happens to an underprivileged woman, either they are burned, their bodies are burned at 2 a.m. in the morning. They are never covered by the journalist. If the journalist tries to cover it, they are killed on spot, or they are put in jail. So, and these are very recent events in India. These are very recent events. So, and the perpetrators never get punished because they're always from the so-called like a higher caste, like a privileged community. And this has been happening for so long, and this thing is happening from thousands of years, from like so early, like very early. So they had this a custom that whenever an underprivileged woman marries, gets married, on the wedding day, she doesn't go to her husband's house. She will be taken by a man from a privileged society and keep her for 3 days, use her, sexually use her, and then after 3 days, she will be marked actually on her head, saying that she's used already. Now she's available to use for her husband. Now she can go to her husband. So this was a tradition like years back, hundreds and hundreds years back. But how is it different now when the underprivileged women are getting raped? How is it different? So this is a very broader issue to discuss, but these are some of the very horrible atrocities that some people go through.
It is just so crazy. I read a book, Last Girl by Nadia Murad, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, whose Yazidi tribe was genocided and by ISIS. And Amal Clooney, George Clooney's wife, is representing her to fight against ISIS. And then Amal was saying that in order for ISIS to be persecuted, the point is that the idealism would never die when people will get away with these crimes and sex trafficking and rape and massive killing. So she's fighting against ISIS, saying that if you see your bosses getting on a trial in international court and getting prosecuted and go to jail and stuff, that's how you know kill the idealism of it's okay. It is not okay. And
Okay.
it is not okay that your father and your sisters has been laid hand on you guys, and it is a crime. There was a news. Rudolph Giuliani, New York former mayor, was
Yeah.
just just tapped on the shoulder, the one like the store, and then called hey scumbag, and then he got charged for like assault. And then the guy went to jail. That
Yeah.
is how much of the privilege that this country can have, that I wished even like an ounce of it that these
Yeah,
women
me too.
could have when they are like technically beaten to death.
Yeah.
And how can you be silenced? And it like angers me so much because I've seen mom getting beaten up in silence
Yeah.
since I was 4. And I had been beaten up by my father, and I could not say a word.
Yeah.
So I am so sorry. Sujata, I want to switch our question to the tools that you use to overcome. You kind of mentioned some of it, but I want you to understand that a lot of people who had never experienced this significant trauma would easily say, go get a therapist or whatever. So
Yeah.
I hate that when people say, as a survivor of domestic violence and then all this harassments and everything that you went through, and now you are here in America, knowing your human rights and what's right. What are the tools that you can share with our audience that you used that worked the most?
So the first thing was when I wanted to get out of India, the first thing that would put at least, my mind at ease was education. Like, to educate myself, I concentrated on my personal growth. And this came from the very fact that I was always surrounded by the idea of education. Education plays a vital role. And Dr. Ambedkar, actually, who was a social reformer and who wrote the Constitution of India, he has served underprivileged communities during all of his lifetime. He dedicated his life to serving, fought for the civil rights of the people. So he always said, you educate, organize, and then fight. And that is what I did. Like, that was my first tool. Like, I have to educate myself, uh, go to a position where I am empowered, and I'm in a position where I'm able to empower other people. So first thing was getting into that position and then fighting it. So that was the sequence. That the first tool I had was education. The second thing is, as I mentioned, when I was into, like, I started having these thoughts of like suicide, and from 2018, actually, I started going into meditation. So it brought a lot of awareness in me. People who have not done meditation, they would actually argue, like, how would sitting alone in silence would just solve your problems? Well, it doesn't, but it gives you a mindset, a perspective to look at those problems in a different way, and actually try to see the opportunities in those, in those problems. So I did that as from 2018. It was by accident, actually. I was so, like, so down and it's so depressed that I I just Googled it, like, monasteries near me. So I just went to one of the monasteries, and I happened to meet this monk. And later I trained with this monk for more than a year. And then that actually kind of, helped me a lot, making more aware of my thoughts. It improved my conversation with myself. So the quality of conversation that I had with myself, it improved dramatically after I started getting into meditation and starting paying attention to what I'm thinking and what I'm talking to myself. So that improved a lot with meditation. The other thing was I actually looked for a good support system. I built a good support system. So I reached out to people who would understand me, which I was very reluctant earlier. I told you, right? I grew up very angry. So I carried that anger for a very long time in my life. So I didn't have a lot of, I had a lot of friends, but I didn't have a close friend. So I kind of worked on that. After I started into meditation, I met a few people who I'm till date I'm very very close with. Like the first person I would call is within that, like, those two three people, like whatever happens, good or bad. So I built that support system around me. I try to talk to people who are wiser than me, who are at a position where I want to be, spiritually. So I got involved, spiritually more, building this support system. The other thing was, I really, kind of looked at my life, like following my interest. I started thinking on like what I really like to do. So following my interest, redefining myself, rediscovering myself, and actually acting is one of is the outcome of one of that self discoveries I had, that I wanted to. Because so when I was 15, 14, 15, I had the dream in my mind, but I was so focused on my survival. At the time, survival was the most important thing, that I had to survive. Forget about the dream. It's not even there. Even if it's there, it's like back of the mind, subconscious, I don't know where. But first thing is survival. How do I get out of this place? So much of my time went into that. And then um, after I got out, I got educated, this flurry of like really bad relationships one after another. So I never got time to actually think what I really want in life. And when I got out of this really last relationship, and I started, thinking and looking into myself, I that those dreams that I had when I was 14, 15, it kind of came back. And then I started, like, since like almost last year, I started enrolling into like acting classes, and going into auditions, because it makes me feel good. This is something I really want to do. And finding that interest, and that was my passion. But what was the, like, a game changer was finding my purpose. All this meditation that I did since from 2018, the purpose that I found for myself, that was very very enlightening, I would say, because that actually pushes me every day to pursue my passion. So for me, my purpose, I have made sure that, so I made sure that I write it on the paper, like word by word, what exactly I wanted to do. I want to achieve my goal. I want to be so visible, and at that level where I can reach out to every child who is in those settings that I grew up in, that small town, that information deprived place. I want to reach out to that every child and tell them that they can dream. They can dream, and they have to dream, and dream so big that people should laugh at you. Because when you achieve those dreams, those are the people, they are going to tell other people proudly how they met you. So that is where I want to reach. I want to show that every child, that is my motive behind this acting, because I know movies have power, films have power. Because when there was nothing in my hometown, like nothing at all, there was still movies,
Mm-hmm.
right? There were still films, there were still TV shows. So that is one medium that you can reach to each and every corner of this world. And I specifically want to reach out to those children, and just be in a position where I have achieved my dream, and making them think that it's not only possible, it's probable. They can do it. So that is my whole purpose of getting into, this film business. So that interest actually was very important. Like, that was one of the tool that I used to, like, keep myself motivated. Because When you go through so much, forget about motivation. Getting up from a bed is a Herculean task every morning. I'm still till date, I would not say like 100% of my days are beautiful and I'm always happy, but some days it does take, lot of energy and lot of motivation to just get out of the bed, because you have been through so much, you're mentally, emotionally exhausted, and it takes a lot. So keeping yourself motivated, reading good books has been always been a, a very, they say that books are your best friends. They are. They can teach you so many things, and if you read good books, it it just changes your life. I believe in the power of prayers. I have always believed in the power of prayers. um, I saw this interview of Bruce Lee, when he said, don't ask for an easier path, ask for the ability and the strength to walk on a difficult path. So I always pray that I should have a strength. So whatever comes along, I should have strength, ability, and I will add to it the patience. So because I come from that background, I had anger. It is, I have to take one extra step to be not angry, to control my emotions, and I have to work hard than other people, because things might happen and the trauma might trigger for me. If I see a lot of yellings, I instantly I go back to my childhood, thinking there was so much yelling at home. There was always a fight between my parents. So if I see someone getting beaten up, I automatically go back to my childhood. So I have to be very precautious, like, uh, take very small step, but I focus on continuous improvement. Like, I improve, take small steps, but improve every day and be consistent with it. So, those are some of the tools that I think have helped me a lot to get out of it.
But thank you very much. It just breaks my heart. It just completely, I can relate to you so much. And then thank you so much for reading my book too.
Yeah, I completed your book in one day, actually. So my highest record is 4 days, which is the book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. I read that book in 4 days. And yours is the one that I read in one day. So I know one thing about myself, that if I have enough motivation, I can do anything.
Well, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. I really admire you, and then I really appreciated this conversation. And I just want to let you know and let the audience know what you just shared with us in this podcast today about domestic violence and the harassment and caste and prejudice, and then you still have these tools that you discovered and then keep it going and then acting and filmmaking and then putting out a message. And I love what you said about educate, organize, and fight. And then I never had that kind of advocacy in me. But then when I look at myself right now, I'm 46 years old. When I was beaten up in a small village like you in Japan, I would have never thought that I would be covering hard news for one of the most prestigious newspaper as a journalist, and I will be filmmaking award-winning films and being Oscar-nominated films with my son. I'm going to Emmy in June with my son.
Oh, yay! Congratulations.
Thank you. And getting interviewed, having my podcast, being um, on amazing platforms. I serve as advisory for Women in Film Video New England. I'm really trying to use my voice to bring awareness to not only domestic violence, child sex abuse, homelessness, and bullying, but also diversity and inclusion, and how can we take off these biases and live in peace. And that's what I'm doing. Every words that I put out there, and then the privilege that I have as Asian female news reporter that are allowed to write hard news, I would never ever take for granted of every single word that I put out there. So I just want to share that with you and our audience. The time has definitely changed, but we still do have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah.
And like what you said, the children in back in India who are still getting beaten up, and the man and father, whoever, I don't want to use this word, like MF, they just need to know that it's not okay. And they are born from women, which pisses me off, that
Exactly.
they don't understand where they came from, the what you are beating up a child, a woman, that is where you came from. Like, why would you do that? So it's really interesting phenomenon to me that, like, why would you destroy your house where you came from? That's what the man's doing to us. And it's not okay. And I hate it so much. And I hate writing sexual assault stories. I hate people reaching out to me that my kids are assaulted, sexually assaulted. What should I do? I hate this so much that I don't know how to stop it. And then I think what we have to do, what we talked about here, it inspired me a lot about educating, organizing, and fighting. And that's really amazing thing. And I would have never imagined that I would have voice, but your voice matters. Your voice matters. And then you sharing the story today is really inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my last question is a gift that came from your adversity. So how would you say the gift that came from your adversity?
So, the first thing I would say that I'm very, very grateful is emotional independence. Now I am at a position where I don't need to be emotionally dependent on anybody. Like, if a person is angry at me, or if a person is doesn't have good intention towards me, it doesn't bother me anymore. It made me so strong. And it's a freedom that you cannot put a price on, that thinking that your emotions and your reactions like does not depend on what other person is doing. It's such, you are in such a position of control. You have all the control within you. You don't have to go to anybody, or what other people are doing is not affecting you at all. That is a position of power, and that is emotional independence. And you know what, every mother, especially in India, they need to like get rid of this Neanderthal conditioning that a woman has to depend on a man emotionally. Like, if things are going well, okay, but this conditioning that is put by family, or external, your extended families or your society, that needs to go away first for people to be emotionally independent. No, why people like me has to suffer so much, right, to get to a point where you're completely emotionally independent. So first thing is that came, that's a blessing that I told you, right, this is a freedom you cannot put a price on. It's so freeing. It's so freeing that you're independent. Your emotions are independent. You're not only financially independent, but emotionally you're independent. The other thing I would say is grit. The passion and the perseverance that I have right now, because of all the events that has happened, that is a wonderful gift. Because if these not would have happened, I would have had the same, same life, like a what every woman has, Don't dream big. Just get married, have children, spend your life, rest of your life looking for your children. I'm not saying that's bad, but I would not have tapped into my inner dream of what I actually wanted, when I was 15. I would have just get caught up in, like, okay, marriage, then having kids, raising them. I would have been caught up in that. But because the events happened this way, now I have that grit, that passion, and that perseverance to kind of achieve and go for my dreams and ambitions that I have. you know Being my own light, like, Buddha once said, be your own light. Don't wait anybody to save you, because no one has the ability to save you. No one in this world has the ability to save you. It's you. If you look into the whole universe, there's only one person who can save you, and that is you. So that mindset, and that mindset came with what you call the growth mindset. I There's this Angela Duckworth. I read her book Grit. It is such a powerful book. The viewers, if you get a chance, read it. It's very good book. So she has, like, explained how this grit works, and this that has been, like, one of the, the pivotal thing that now I have, which I can proudly say that it came out of that miserable years that I have spent in domestic violence, or unhealthy relationships, or being discriminated. So I think those are the two things, very important things, that I'm very proud of.
Thank you so much. I really want to echo about the marriage and the concept of you have to have men, you have to serve men. In Japan, it's the same. Our biggest goal is to serve men. Our biggest goal is to become the best wife. And it's such a propaganda and such a bad concept. What has condemned on us as a women is that because of that, the domestic violence is allowed. Because of that, sexual abuse is allowed. Because of that, you have to suffer to the point that you could die, but then they don't care
Yeah.
because your goal is to serve a man and you're not worthy if you don't have a man. And that is wrong.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you bringing it up. My PCP told me in America, Juri, it's okay to be single. This is America, because I was to the point I was so depressed. But then when you realize it, who put that idea in my head? And what you said about grit and emotional independence, that you don't need to have a partner, especially the partner is abusive. You
Right.
don't need that at all. You need to get rid of it and you need to move forward. And you need to be in a healthy and a safe place for you to be okay. So I really appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, first thing is, like, let go of toxic people from your life. Let go of that toxic mentality, the conditioning that we have been raised with. Yeah, I this is my message to, like, every mother, every family, that don't raise girls with that, you know delimiting mindset, that you need a man in your life. If you get it, and if he's good, then it's good. you know be happy for it. But if it's not, then still be happy. You don't need anybody to be, like, dependent on. If you're emotionally independent, you really can live a very happy life by yourself.
Very true. Thank you so, so much. I just want to share a wisdom from my daughter who is 6 years old. I was in bad relationship and I told her about it. Block him, stop talking to him, say goodbye to bad days, say thank you to things that are coming to our ways.
Oh, she's wise. She's going to be a very wise soul.
I think I'm doing something right. Yes,
Oh, you
but
are so powerful, Juri. I read your book. I just loved it. As I said, I read it in one go, one day, and it was so amazing. And I'm really proud of you, like how you managed to be here from Japan, suffering from all that. Um, it's really commendable. I'm really proud of you, and I'm really really glad that I got to know you. And I really hope that I keep in touch with you for a long, long time.
absolutely. Well, thank you again, Sujata, for coming to A Gift from Diversity. And thank you for the audience for tuning in and really being there for us and then listening to this conversation. That means so much. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.